Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today. We are presented by Gatorade on this Wednesday, the first day after the initial CFP rankings of the year. This is always a day that provides us with much to discuss. And as I said in the open, who better to discuss it with than this man, a man who just loves the college football playoff process. I say that with tongue firmly planted in cheek. Jerry DiNardo is with us. Hello, Coach.
Hello. It really should be a national holiday. I mean, we've got to elevate this whole process.
All right. Well, with no further ado, I think that will be taken under advisement. Let's get to our big story, and it is those CFP rankings. 7 Big Ten teams in the rankings, the most ever, including the top 2, Ohio State #1, Indiana 2nd. That mirrors the AP poll. In fact, the top 5 mirror the AP poll. Oregon is 6 in the AP. The Ducks are 9 in the playoff rankings. That was tied for the biggest negative difference between a team's AP ranking and its playoff ranking. Rest of the Big Ten, USC 19th, Iowa's 20th. They have the largest positive differential between the AP and the playoff. Michigan's 21, Washington's 23. You translate it into a bracket. Here's what you got. Buckeyes and Hoosiers would get byes. Oregon would open in Lubbock against Texas Tech. Were they to win that game, they'd play Ohio State in round 2 for the second straight year. IU would get the winner of Notre Dame and BYU. Memphis, by the way, the 12 seed, though they do not appear in the rankings, getting the one guaranteed non-power conference spot. Jerry, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I know you do too. I will defer to you. Why don't you get us started? What jumps out to you?
Well, first of all, they're going to talk about the 3 or 4 coaches they have on the committee as we go forward. If they're bragging about 3 or 4, why isn't it 12 expert people in the game of football? You don't have to be a coach to be an expert in college football. Alan True, who works for the network, as you know, does recruiting. And I asked him once, Alan, you didn't really have a lot of playing experience or coaching experience. How do you know how to evaluate the prospects? And he explained to me it's a skill that was learned. And there's people out there that college football has been a major part of their life. Some of them are coaches and some of them aren't. But these are people that know the game, and they can tell you which team is better. The Joe Moore Award is another example for me. They're a group of people that evaluate the offensive line, and I mean evaluate it. I mean, they dig deep, deep, deep. So my exception to this process is the committee. I don't think the committee is qualified to pick out the best 12 schools. You mentioned Memphis. I believe Utah was ranked 13th, or if I'm not mistaken. So they don't get to play for the national championship because this group of 5 team is automatically in the playoffs. So those are my complaints, always have been my complaints. Let's pay 5, 10 people $200,000-$300,000 that know football to tell us who the best teams are. They don't have to be coaches. They just have to be experts in the sport.
Okay, I am not one to opine a whole lot on this show. I mean, I usually feel like that is the purview of the analysts, particularly kind of to your point when it gets to breaking down teams, because I'm not a football expert in the way that you are. But this process, to me, is something I do feel qualified to opine on, and so I'm going to opine a little bit. I think this whole deal, particularly the reveal that we sit through and the subsequent reveals that we sit through in November until we get to the real thing, I think this entire thing is an absolute charade. And I'll tell you why it's a charade. I think for a couple reasons. And I want to say, I don't say that in any way to criticize the people involved in the process. Like, I'll just use the example of the person who's hosting the show, Jerry, who you know, like I worked with for 11 years. I could not think more highly of anyone in our business, I think, of Reese Davis. Like, I think the world of him. We know people on the committee. I do. I know you do, too. I think the world of those people. I think everyone is doing the best job that they can possibly do in whatever has been assigned to them. And I'd say the same about Mack Rhoades. I don't know Mack Rhoades, but I'm sure he's doing the best he can. However, like, I just want to point out some flaws in what we watched last night. And Reese asked Mack Rhoades about these new metrics that apparently have been introduced into the process this year? And was there any team that suffered or moved around significantly because of those metrics? And here's what Mack Rhoades had to say. He brought up Oregon. He said the enhanced metrics came up when we talked about Oregon. Oregon, when you look at them in the top 10, are the lowest ranked in terms of record strength. And so the committee had a lot of conversation, rigorous debate, conversation about Oregon as a team. They always have rigorous debate, by the way, Jerry. Just once I'd like to hear a reference to lackadaisical debate, but I don't doubt it was rigorous. Again, this is not a shot at how hard everyone works. They work hard. So again, that seems negative to me, right? They don't think highly of Oregon. But then here's what we got, Jerry. And we're blessed to have 3 coaches in the room and looking at the tape. And when you looked at Oregon, great players at the skill position, felt they're really, really good up front, both sides of the ball. Their one loss is to our number 2 ranked team, Indiana. And so again, when we looked and evaluated Oregon, we really looked in terms of quality of the team and how they looked on film. So I thought Oregon's ranking was about the enhanced metrics, which were negative. But this sounds like a great football team. I mean, they looked at them on tape and they said they're a great team. So again, I'm not criticizing. It doesn't matter to me where Oregon was ranked. It really doesn't. I think maybe they should be a little bit higher. But I think history has told us that this initial ranking does not matter. Oregon's got 4 games left. 3 of them are against ranked teams. If they win 3 of those 4 games, I have no doubt whatsoever that they will be in the college football playoff. To me, it is about, again, this kind of process here. I think it's a waste of everyone's time. I think it's a little bit of an insult to our intelligence. And I think Rhoades is put in an impossible spot. I mean, he's asked to summarize in like 20 seconds why they evaluated Oregon where they evaluated them. And you know, read notes if you want to read the notes, if you want to have an answer that makes sense. But the answer kind of contradicts itself. It says, on one hand, you know, the metrics. Well, the metrics were bad. And then he goes on to talk about what a great team they have. And I just think, like, every year, Jerry, we parse this thing. We parse these responses of the committee chair. And again, nothing against the committee chair, but we parse these responses like they are holy scripture. And we look through every single word, and none of it matters until we get to Selection Sunday. And why are we spending all this time on it? It's crazy to me.
Well, I think we probably know why, because it's a TV show, and TV shows are popular and they make money. I'm interested in your feeling about what I brought up about Memphis and Utah. I misspoke, I believe, about Utah. To my understanding, Utah is ranked number 12, but Memphis would be ahead of them, and Utah would not be in the playoffs if this was the final rankings. To me, we can't really say these are the best 12 teams in the country playing for the national championship. And so that's something that has always kind of made me feel negative about this process. Your feelings on that?
Yeah, I disagree with you. I think if you were going to build consensus, I mean, again, otherwise there's no incentive at all for the schools outside the power conferences to agree to this. So I think you have to include one of those teams to just have the consensus that everyone's on board with this thing. I mean, otherwise you're talking about the power conferences breaking off and just having their own playoff. And you know, again, I want there to be one team from that group of 5 or 6 or however many conferences it is now. So I disagree with you. You know, again, if we're going to get in the process, Jerry, I actually believe it should all be computerized. And this is maybe a conversation for another week, because I know I've spent a lot of time on my soapbox here. I think the whole thing should be computerized. The issue isn't that it's a computer. You know, the issue with the BCS to me wasn't there was a computer. It was the inputs into the computer. Like, to your point, give me 12 or 20 or however many great football people in a room, spend a ton of time parsing every aspect of the game, and then tell me, like, what percentage of ranking a great team is offensive line play. And you say it's 13%. And I say, great. We have these 6 metrics that measure offensive line play. What do you think of these metrics? You know, how many yards you get before initial contact, how many times the quarterback's in your or the offensive line, defensive line's in your quarterback's face, whatever it might be. and we'll quantify all of those things, and we'll go through the entire game of football and quantify and get really great inputs into this computer, and then we'll computerize it. So you use the committee not to rank the teams. You use the committee to tell you how to rank the teams using metrics, and then you put it all in. That, to me, is the way you do it.
Right. I understand. I agree.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a mess. Any final thoughts before we move on?
No, I just, if you're bragging about 3 coaches, why not brag about 12 and give them the majority of the room? These are all very successful people, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been invited to be on the committee. They're just not very successful people in watching the game of football and telling us who the best 12 teams are.
Yeah, I mean, again, I in no way want to impugn the job that anyone's doing. I'm not saying you are either. Like, I think everyone's doing their best. I just think that it's kind of a fool's errand, honestly, and I don't know why we're doing it right now. I don't know why we don't just wait till December. I think we can refine the process. I think we've probably exhausted the topic, so let's move on and let's get into the game. That #1 team in the nation is playing on our air on Saturday. Heisman contender Julian Sayin leading the top-ranked Buckeyes against Purdue. Then Devon Williams Jr. in Washington battle Wisconsin. Coverage begins with countdown to kickoff, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. So, Jerry, as we leave the rankings behind and talk about the teams, let's start with Ohio State and this game against Purdue. I think one discussion topic that has surrounded the Buckeyes, like if anyone is to say anything negative about Ohio State, it is about the run game. Maybe don't have a featured tailback, maybe don't run it quite the way that they have in past years. Does that concern you at all about Ohio State?
It doesn't concern me much. I mean, now that I've really looked at it maybe in a little bit different way. Now, Bo Jackson had over 100 yards rushing, and I know one of them was, I think, a 51-yard carry. But as you look at the Ohio State team, their pass offense is so extraordinary. This isn't a dink and dunk type of offense. This is a pass offense that can strike deep, intermediate, short. I mean, they're extraordinary in the pass game. So I think we have to look at it a little different. If you look at the numbers, they're still pretty balanced in play calls. So I've come to the conclusion that their run game was better against Penn State, I think, than it was in the previous weeks. And so they're going to continue to get better. But is it alarming? I don't think it is. Here's where I've come to the conclusion about their offense. Extraordinary pass game. If, in fact, they can convert on 3rd and short, in the red zone, on the goal line. Now, I think there was a situation against Washington when they played out there where they were on the goal line, and I think they tried to run it in, and they couldn't. So you can be explosive offensively in the pass game, not a big run game, but when it comes to short yards, goal line, red zone, you better be really good if you're going to play for a championship. And you already mentioned this. Bo Jackson had over 100 yards. But they've had tailbacks that are still playing in the NFL now in recent years. So that's part of it. But you still have to defend the run because Bo broke a 51-yard run. So, it's still, there's still the threat there. So am I concerned? I'm no longer concerned about their run game. Plus, let's face it, Ryan Day's was a quarterback. He's running the show. We've got a Brian Hartline up in the box. He was a wide receiver. So they're probably having a lot of fun.
Well, you'd have a lot of fun, too, if you had that quarterback and those receivers. What about Purdue? Hey, they played Michigan tough. I mean, we joke on Saturday, Howard and Marcel and I, we've been sitting up on that desk saying, man, Purdue's so much better, and they're going to get someone here. I'm not convinced they are anymore, given their schedule. But what did you make of the Boilers and kind of where they stand heading into this game?
Yeah, man, I am a big Barry Odom fan. I mean, he has brought enthusiasm there. And here's what he's doing. And I think all of us that have been in his situation have done it this way. The word culture is thrown around a lot in college football. And that's really just how you do things, right? And it's how you implement your program. And where he is now in the process is they're working on the things that take no talent to accomplish. Not that they don't have talent there, but you can be on time. You can have great effort in a game. You can line up on sides every play. There's certain basic minimum things that he is implementing now. And as he recruits and as he brings in better players and more players, the culture's already there about all the things that you have to do that have nothing to do with talent. I think it was the Rutgers game, which was a close game when we were in the green room. And there, Purdue made a big play or a big defensive play, I can't remember. And there was a shot of the sidelines. I mean, you thought that team was playing for the national championship. And it's all because of Barry Odom's enthusiasm. This team is opposite of what it was the last couple of years.
I agree with you. And again, I thought they were going to win somewhere along the way. I mean, they may still, but their three remaining opponents are combined 23-2, including the top two teams in the country. So it's a challenge, no doubt. But I don't think there's any question that they are improved. Speaking of the top two teams in the country, one of those, of course, is Indiana. They're going to Penn State. This is a place where they have never won, Jerry. And remember, Penn State's been in the league for more than 30 years, and Indiana has never won there. So, again, it speaks to where the program's been and where Penn State has been. Frankly, they head into this game. Certainly the thought is that they will break that streak and win at Penn State. What do you see as these two match up?
Right. Indiana's going to State College, and they are the favorite. That has not rolled off the tongue of many of us in the past, and they will be ready for this game. Now, this is going to be a physical game. Both these teams are physical. I mean, go back to last year's season when Coach Cignetti said we have to get better at the line of scrimmage, and he brought in 7 total on offense and defense guys from the portal, and he achieved that goal. Penn State's always had physical players on both sides of the line of scrimmage. So it's for sure going to be a physical game. Remember, this is the new normal for Penn State. I mean, young people, they transition pretty quickly, and they may have loved their coach, but now he's gone. It's been 2 or 3 weeks. Now they love their new coach. And so this Penn State team's very talented. They're playing at home. They have a lot of pride in their school and their football program. And this is a game where Indiana has to come in. They could do something they've never done before, as you have described. But Indiana certainly has to be ready for Penn State's best shot. I think this will be the best game that Penn State has played since James Franklin has left, just because, in my opinion, it's the new normal, and they're at home, and they're playing a number 2 ranked team in the country. And Coach Cignetti will have this team ready. If I think we all know what kind of coach he is. But I'd expect this to be a 60-minute slobber knocker.
I'm with you. I think he'll use that fact they've never won there as motivation. Again, I just feel like you have to kind of continue to look for the edge each week, and it just seems to me that Cignetti has a way of pushing the right buttons. I think we've got a lot of evidence to support that. But no doubt they're going up against a team with immense talent. I mean, we talked about this before the year. We've talked about it every week. No team returned more all-conference players from last year than Penn State did. They've lost their quarterback, who was a huge part of it. But no doubt, to your point, they will be ready to go. Saturday, Big Ten Tailgate live from Iowa for 2 hours to get you ready for the showdown between the Hawkeyes and the Ducks. Then countdown to kickoff takes you on the field before the Buckeyes clash with the Boilermakers. All starts Saturday at a special time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 Pacific on the Big Ten Network in the Fox Sports app. And Jerry, Oregon, Iowa is a great game. It is now a game between 2 ranked teams, thanks to those CFP rankings, which we just spoke about, because Iowa does break into those rankings, and it is, of course, at Kinnick Stadium, and I know you think that is a huge part of setting the table for this game.
Yeah, I really do. I mean, I think it's really a true home field advantage, but it also talks and speaks to the new Big Ten, right? I mean, the West Coast schools coming to Iowa City, they've never been there before. You know, usually, the seniors have been everywhere as you play in conference play. And so, this is a different environment, just like the Big Ten, the traditional Big Ten schools when they go out to the West Coast. So I really think this is a learning curve. I think it's a way that all the 18 programs are being developed and how this is all working. But the scene in Iowa City is a scene like not hard to duplicate. So I do think that there's going to be a home field advantage for Iowa. Both teams are playing really good defense. Both teams are pretty physical. With Ganowski at quarterback, He is a running quarterback. He's a dual threat quarterback. It's a perfect complement to the Iowa defense and the Iowa special teams. And again, it'll be interesting to see. Oregon. As I watch the tape, I still don't think they're where they were before the Indiana game. But I think this game is probably going to put them there or even better because they've slowly been improving since the loss to Indiana. But they'll play their best game, I would think, this week.
What do you think ultimately separates these two as you look at it, Jerry?
Well, it could be the big plays on Oregon's offense. That's going to be hard to duplicate for Iowa. As much as Iowa's offense has improved, it's really not explosive. Oregon's got an explosive offense. So if it comes down on offense making the difference, I think Oregon makes the difference.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Oregon's got 61 plays of 20 yards or longer, which leads the Big Ten. Iowa has just 24, which is tied for the third fewest in the Big Ten. So I don't think there's any doubt the Ducks are the most explosive team on the field. The question is, can they do it against that great defense that you were talking about? So that is one game pitting teams from the old Big Ten against teams that have joined the Big Ten from the West Coast. We got another one Friday night, actually. Northwestern going out to USC to take on the Trojans. First time these two have met since that incredibly memorable Rose Bowl game at the end of the 1995 season. Remember, USC, Jerry, had to play a night game against Nebraska, and then they travel back out. They've got a Friday night game here. Northwestern had a bye week last week before heading out west. To what extent do you think that could impact this game?
I think it impacts it, and it also speaks to what we just talked about Iowa, right? If you played in the West Coast prior to joining the Big Ten, now you go to Iowa City, it's different. If you play at Iowa and you go some Saturday to play at the Coliseum against USC, these are all different experiences. So the coaches and the players have to deal with this, that USC was in Lincoln and now they're playing Friday night and Northwestern has a bye. I mean, these type of things are going to happen in the 18-team conference that goes from East Coast to West Coast. Both teams are moving the ball on the ground. USC is having trouble stopping the run. Notre Dame rushed for over 200 yards last week. Nebraska actually had some success running the ball. So I think that's probably the difference. Whoever's run defense plays better. The interesting thing about USC at Nebraska is Jaden Maiava was not having a good game in the pass game. In fact, he was having a bad day in the pass game, and all of a sudden we saw them shift gears and they used his legs and some option stuff to win the game. So Northwestern's defense is going to have to be ready for the Jaden that can throw it and the Jaden that can run it. But it'll be a really interesting thing, but run defense will probably decide who wins the game.
Yeah, Nebraska, of course, has a great pass defense, one of the best pass defenses in the country. Northwestern's pretty good there, too. They're giving up 165 yards per game, on pace for their best this century, which is saying something because they had some really good defenses when Mike Hankwitz was the defensive coordinator. So that's the matchup on Friday night in L.A. Zach Lutmer has emerged as a star in the Iowa secondary. 2 interceptions this season. He's tied for third on the team in tackles. One of the leaders of a group that's second in the nation in total defense heading into that Saturday showdown we talked about with Oregon. Lutmer chatting with Ashley Adamson. It is today's big interview.
Yeah, ahead of a monster game this Saturday against the Oregon Ducks, a rising star in Iowa's defense, Zach Lutmer, is with us. And Zach, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate you making it for us today. Tell me about the bye week. Let's start with that. What was your biggest focus and what'd you do last Saturday with the day off?
Yeah, so the biggest focus, was definitely getting our bodies right. Relaxing, resting up, recharging. We had 2 days of practice, and then after that, we were able to, go home, kind of mentally reset. Saturday I enjoyed watching some other football games. Haven't had to do that a lot, so that was awesome. And then got to see the fam, so that was also very nice. And then came back Sunday and we were ready to work from there.
Yeah, when you've got a big opportunity, we'll talk about that game in just a little bit. But I want to rewind. You've had 2 interceptions, I think, in your last 4 games. Take me back to the pick 6 against Minnesota. What did you see on that play? And was there a moment that you knew you were going to the end zone?
Yeah, so our coaches actually did a awesome job. The night before they kind of we saw that play on film. We talked about it, and they happened to run that play in the first quarter of the game. So I remembered us talking about it, played it the way the coaches wanted me to play it. And then from there, the blocks that my teammates set up were crazy. I was kind of just following them, zigzagging around them. They kind of just led a path for me to the end zone. So credit to them for sure.
Credit to them. You got some great blocks, but you also stepped over a guy and then you broke a tackle from that, 6'6", 350-pound lineman. In high school, from what I understand, you were a big time dual threat quarterback in Rock Rapids. So I can't help but think that experience and sort of that quarterback brain still kicked in that moment. Is that fair?
Oh, 100%. When I get the ball in my hands, I'm thinking score every single time. Go back to high school, I miss running the ball, so any chance I get to do that, definitely going to make it worthwhile.
You looked comfortable running that ball. How much of that old offensive instinct helps you now that you're playing on the other side of the ball?
Yeah, it helps a lot. Thinking back to when I played quarterback, I had a lot of different reads, knew how to look kind of defenders off a little bit. So I kind of know quarterbacks are obviously going to do that. They're not just going to stare down a guy. So that helps in that sort of way, and just kind of timing, I would say, is the biggest thing.
Well, you now play for one of the best defensive minds in college football, and Phil Parker, your defensive coordinator. He said the other day that you can play 5 different positions in the secondary. So I'll ask you, where do you feel most at home?
Yeah, I feel most at home, in the slot. I've gotten the most reps there. So, but anywhere he puts me, I kind of trust what he's thinking on that. So any chance that I get to be on the field is just a blessing for sure.
What's something that you've learned from Phil Parker that maybe isn't X and O's football related?
Yeah, something that I've learned from him is just, not taking the game for granted, for sure. You can be out the next day. You never know what's going to happen. So just enjoying every single day, not taking any play, not taking any day for granted.
Well, so you guys are 4-1 in the Big Ten, and a massive opportunity, obviously, this weekend against a top 10 team in Oregon, who's also 4-1. I know that guys always say, and it's true, that every Saturday is the most important one. But what really feels on the table for you guys this week?
Yeah, it's another chance to go out and compete is the biggest thing. Coming out after bye week, we haven't hit people for a while, so we're kind of excited to get back on the field, go hit another opponent. And, the fans, it's going to be a great atmosphere. Kinnick Stadium's always lively. So I'm excited, looking forward to that. Yeah, Oregon's a great team. They got a lot of great players, so it's going to be a fun game and definitely exciting.
When you watch Dante Moore and that Oregon offense on film, what's sort of the biggest thing that stands out to you that maybe not be obvious to a casual viewer or fan?
Yeah, the biggest thing that stands out to me is just he's a competitor and is a winner. Going back to his high school days, we have a teammate at Iowa that played with him, and he kind of says the same thing about him. He's a winner. He'll do whatever it takes. So, he's a great quarterback, great passer, obviously super fast, mobile. We're going to have to do a good job on him for sure, and he's got a lot of targets that are pretty talented as well.
Yeah, well said. It's going to be a fun one to watch. Last couple of things for me. I found it hard to believe. I read that your only FBS offer was from the Hawkeyes. Is that true?
That is true, yeah. I had SDSU, South Dakota State, and then University of South Dakota as well. So FCS offer, and then Iowa came in, and glad they did for sure.
Yeah, well, and I know that they're glad that they did as well. What's your advice maybe for some guys out there who believe that they can play at a big-time level like you are right now, but aren't getting the looks or the attention for whatever the case may be?
Yeah, never give up on your dreams, man. Some opportunity will come, and it's whether you make the most of it or not. So that's the biggest thing.
Well, you are certainly making the most of your opportunity. It's been fun to watch you Saturday afternoon on CBS, Iowa and Oregon. First meeting since 1994. Zach, thank you for the time. Have a blast on Saturday, and best of luck the rest of the way.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Do not forget, you can see Sayed and Jeremiah Smith here on the Big Ten Network Saturday, kicking off our doubleheader coverage as they battle Purdue, Washington, and Wisconsin. We'll follow that one. Coverage begins with countdown to kickoff, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific here on the Big Ten Network. And as always, on the Fox Sports app, Jerry is back with us. He's given up the clicker, but he's ready to talk. And, Coach, let's talk a little bit about Washington and Wisconsin. And I know for you, the focus in this game starts with that Washington offense. Tell me why.
Well, I think their offense is one of the best offenses in the country. They're a little bit unique in one series that they run. It's really got my attention. It's a wide zone play that makes the defense go laterally. And now what happens is the quarterback comes out, he's on the roll, and there's basically nobody in front of him. It's something that Jed Fish, I think, because of the 3 stars on the offense, I think he has put that in for those guys because it's really, really effective. I can't imagine that if Washington wins out, they're not going to be in the college football playoffs. I mean, they are really good. Ryan Walters has done a really good job with the defense. So they haven't got as much attention as I think they deserve because I think they're one of the best teams in the country. And
I agree with you on Washington because were they to win out, that would include a win over Oregon. I think there are a number of Big Ten teams here that are still very much in the conversation were they to get to 10-2, and they are no doubt one of those teams. What about the team they're going up against in Wisconsin? We know what a challenging season it's been for Luke Fickell's team. What kind of challenge do they present for the Huskies?
Well, the first challenge they present is they are going to play as hard as any team will play on Saturday. You watch the Oregon game when Wisconsin went out there. They looked like they were playing for a championship. There is no lack of energy. There's no lack of hustle. They are on both sides of the ball playing lights out. Now, defensively, they're not only playing well, they're really good. And so they'll challenge the Washington offense. And the Washington offense will have to be ready for a really good defense. Offensively, obviously, they're struggling a little bit, but they're still really playing. Luke Fickell has their attention. The players are giving it everything they have. Remember, Billy Edwards got hurt. They've had a lot of setbacks. They've had a very difficult schedule. But I'm going to tell you, Reverend, when you turn that video on, they look like they're playing as hard as anybody in the country. And the players deserve most of the credit, but so does Luke Fickell.
I hear you. Obviously, the offense, I mean, it's staggering, right? 27 points they've scored total in 5 Big Ten games. Just to give you some context on that, there are 6 Big Ten teams that are averaging more than 27 points per game in conference play. So it has no doubt been a massive struggle. But to your point, the effort still there for the Badgers. Well, tomorrow, don't miss the 2025 Big Ten Women's Soccer Tournament semifinals presented by Allstate. Speaking of Wisconsin, they'll be taking on Washington. It's followed by UCLA against Michigan State. Live coverage begins at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. 3 Big Ten teams opened their hoop seasons last night, including number 1 Purdue. Oilers got a career-high 30 points from Fletcher Loyer, 7 threes. Braden Smith, 11 assists, 82-51 over Evansville. The Ben McCollum era started with a blowout Iowa win, 101-69 over Robert Morris. Bennett Sturts, the biggest name transfer to come with McCollum from Drake, had 19 points and 6 assists. Narrow escape for Oregon against Hawaii. Takai Simpkins, a transfer from Elon, scoring the game-winning bucket there in the final 3 seconds as the Ducks overcame 36% shooting to win it by 1. Tonight, catch a hoops doubleheader when Rutgers hosts Rider, followed by Indiana against Alabama A&M. Coverage begins at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. And when that is over, stay tuned for this. You have called yourself the luckiest guy in the world.
Yeah.
How much of your success do you really believe is due to luck? Because I think we've laid out a lot of things that aren't luck at all.
Yeah, luck applies in terms of scale. You know, when we took broadcast.com public, it was during the middle of an internet stock mania.
Yeah.
And it was the largest IPO in the history of IPOs at the time. And if there wasn't internet stock mania at the time, I wouldn't be sitting here and you wouldn't know who I am.
but don't you think part of your ability, I mean, I understand you're saying there was timing on the
Yeah,
ball, but don't you think part of your ability is, hey, you found something?
Oh, I could be a millionaire again.
Yeah.
Right? I can make enough money to live because I can sell all these things we've talked about.
Right.
But a billionaire?
Right.
That's luck. I don't care who you are. If you say it's not luck, you're lying your ass off.
You will not want to miss my sit down with Mark Cuban. Truly fascinating guy. We had a blast. Big Ten Trailblazers tonight after Indiana basketball on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Let's take a look at the big board as we get set for week 11 in the Big Ten. 7 games in all. We have covered 5 of them. The only ones we have not discussed are Nebraska, UCLA, and Maryland and Rutgers. Both those teams with 4 wins, so needing 2 more to get to a bowl. But let's start with Nebraska and UCLA. And obviously, probably the biggest story in this game, Jerry, is a negative one, unfortunately a sad one for Nebraska. They're without their starting quarterback, Dylan Raiola, for the rest of the year. TJ Lateef will get the start here against UCLA. How does this impact the way that Nebraska is able to approach this game offensively?
Yeah, this is a major issue. I think when Dylan Raiola went down, it was almost like the program went down. There had been so much built around him, his personality. I think he's a sophomore captain. And so when you go down that path and you lose that person, you're not just replacing him, you're trying to replace some of your identity, some of your offense, most of your offense. TJ Lateef is not necessarily built the same way. And so, especially in the pass game. So you're a pass-first team that loses its quarterback, and now TJ Lateef is going to have to be a little bit more of a run, or a lot more of a run. We won't know until it unfolds. But it seems to me this wasn't just losing a player. This was losing an identity, not only of your offense, but maybe of your team.
Yeah, they'll lean a lot on Emmett Johnson. I don't think there's any credit about the guys, or any question about the guys that more than 80% of their rushing offense to begin with. We saw Lateef's ability to move the ball with his legs, and he has completed 84%. It's just most of it was Houston Christian and Akron and some very short passes against SC. What about the flip side of that game? UCLA coming off a bye. What are you expecting from the Bruins?
Well, I think you have got to base your offense, your attack on Nico, right? I mean, he can do both. He can run and he can pass. The only thing that I would say is when they do pass, they've got to protect them. Maybe max protect. Don't use all your receivers in the routes. Maybe get some formations that can give him some safety in the pocket. And they've run some option. They've done a really good job at the offense with the option. He's got to be a threat every down, and with the right play call, he is always going to threaten the defense. And they've done a good job using him, and that's what they'll have to do this weekend.
Well, they've been playing so well, and then they ran into Indiana, and Indiana did to them what they've done to a lot of people, including Maryland. That one last game we want to get to, Maryland and Rutgers. I mentioned that both these teams really need a win. You look at their schedule, Jerry, and I think for each one of them, there's at least one game where you look at later on in the year and you say it's winnable, but you got to get to number 5 before you can get to number 6. So what's the biggest key in this one?
Yeah, when you look at both these teams, it's a little unusual, especially for Rutgers. They're offensively built. They're more explosive on offense. They've got quarterbacks that, dominate their offense, one young, one veteran guy. So it's really going to come down to an offensive battle. Both defenses have struggled some. So my guess would be that whatever quarterback plays better, whatever quarterback gets protected better, whatever quarterback gets the better run game, which both of them have been okay, but their pass game obviously is their best way to move the ball. Whoever does those things offensively probably has the best chance to win the game.
Maryland has certainly been the better of those defenses. You mentioned some struggles, and they struggled mightily against Indiana, but Rutgers has struggled against just about everyone, giving up 7.5 yards per play. That is the worst in a power conference. All right, that's it for our show, Jerry. Unless you have anything else you want to say about the college football playoff, or do you feel like we've exhausted that?
Yeah, I think we've exhausted it, but only for today. We've got next Wednesday we can revisit it. We might change our minds about certain things.
I do feel like there's a good fortune of scheduling in this year that we get you on every Wednesday, because there is no one I know who dislikes this process more than you. Great stuff, Coach. Great to talk to you. We'll see you in here on Saturday. Don't forget to watch the program tomorrow. It will be a great one. Jake Butt and Joel Klatt will join me, as will Rick Pizzo. We will see you then.